Hello my loves, thank you for joining me for another video. My name is Ennie and I post solved, unsolved and missing persons cases here on my channel. If you enjoy this type of content, you're welcome. Please consider subscribing to my channel. Today's case is yet another example of how a faulty upbringing as well as neglected mental health issue can mold us into whom we are not created to be. This is the case of Yukio Yamaji. Yukio Yamaji was born on the 21st of August 1983 into a very poor family. Growing up was kind of tough for him because his family struggled a lot. His mother worked as a clerk in a local store. I am not sure what his father did for a living, but he drank a lot, so much that he passed away from liver cirrhosis around the time Yukio was in elementary school. That would be in January of 1995. Life at home became worse as his father passed and Yukio started rebelling in school. He was already doing very poorly in his academics, so how worse could he get? He was skipping classes a lot, and whenever he managed to attend school, he kind of kept to himself. And when his classmates tried to talk to him or interact with him, he would lash out very violently, up to the point of smashing his class windows during one of his fits. At middle school, nothing had changed. It was still the same old story. There still was little or no food to eat at home. Yukio was still flunking classes, but now his mother was also in serious debt. So when he was about 16 years old, Yukio decided to get a job. He decided high school wasn't for him, so he got himself a job distributing newspapers around town. This was the point where he met and began seeing an older woman who was in her 20s. When Yukio's 50-year-old mother found out about the relationship with a 20-something-year-old woman while he was only 16, she was livid. Of course, no one wants that for the young son, so she kicked against that relationship and demanded Yukio ended things with her. Meanwhile, Yukio's mother was always demanding money from him because he now had a job even though she knew the pay was just a little. And Yukio, he would give her the money. And as this insistent demand grew, Yukio began to harbor serious anger and resentment towards his mother. Obviously, she was doing something with the money he was giving her, but whatever it wasn't benefiting the family as their financial situation grew worse. Yukio's mother was obviously drowning in her debt. When Yukio's mother became aware of the love affair between Yukio and the older woman and demanded that they stop seeing each other, like I said before, she noticed that neither Yukio nor the woman were doing anything to put a stop to it. So she started harassing the woman on the phone to leave her son. She would call her up and stay on the phone just breathing into the mouthpiece and saying nothing. This creeped the woman out, and I think she reevaluated the situation, put the noticeable age gap into consideration, and finally ended things with Yukio. At first, Yukio did not know that his mother was part of the reason his love affair with this woman ended. He tried to get her back, but she wouldn't budge. Soon enough, he got to know that his mother had been calling his ex-lover to threaten her to leave him, and this got him mad. Very, very mad. Upon hearing the news that his mother contributed to the demise of his love life, coupled with the anger that was already festering towards his mother, he grabbed the metal, I think it was an aluminium baseball bat, and went after her. Yukio decided that for messing with his love life, she deserved to be taken out of this world. So on the 29th of July 2000, at 16 years of age, Yukio went at his mother's head with a baseball bat, again and again and again, ending her life in the process. That fateful day, as he entered the room where his mother was, he had just only become aware, a few minutes before, that she caused the woman he loved to leave him. The evil in him wanted her to know exactly what was coming for her, so first, he shattered the glasses on the windows as she watched, totally terrified. Then he turned and faced her, looking directly into her eyes as he landed the first blow. No amount of scream or pleading will make Yukio stop as he continued to hit blow after blow until her face was mangled beyond recognition. She tried to escape at some point, and in the process she walked on broken shards of glass and they stuck to her feet. She couldn't help herself as Yukio beat her until she was unrecognizable. Days later, July the 31st, after the incident, Yukio was arrested by the police. It's not exactly clear how they got to know that he had attacked his mother. Some reports say he called the police himself to report the crime, and other reports say he called his ex-lover to let her know his mother would no longer be a hindrance to them, since he had taken care of her, and the woman called the police to inform them about what he had done. Another report say he invited the woman that he was seeing at the time over to his house for lunch, and during that lunch visit, this woman came across the body of Yukio's mother, and she convinced him to call the police and turn himself in. So he did. Whichever way it was, the police came for him, and while he was being questioned, he told them that she deserved what came for her because she was calling his lover to threaten her. Apart from that, she was accumulating more and more debt, and when he asked her what the exact amount of the debt was, she refused to tell him. Then she also insulted his late father, so for all of this that she was doing, she deserved to be taken out. It seems like this young lad had a lot of bottled anger within him. Anyways, the police transferred the case to a family court in Yamaguchi. During his hearing, the court got to hear about his hard life, his bad upbringing, the absence of his father, his struggles and all of that, and they decided that the attack on his mother had not been planned. It wasn't something he sat and calculated and hashed up and prepared for, so his sentencing was only a stint at the juvenile detention school in Okayama, something like a reform center for troubled minors. While in detention, Yukio seemed to be adjusting quite well. He even went ahead to gain certifications in welding and hazardous materials engineering as he continued to be evaluated by different psychologists. Doctors confirmed that he had had a developmental disorder that did prevent him from forming lasting relationships. But so far so good, he was coping fine in detention and seemed to have been rehabilitated. Fast forward to October of 2003, Yukio was released on parole. This would be 3 years after he had taken his mother's life. Even though the juvenile law in Japan states that juveniles aged 16 or older are to be sent back to the prosecutor's office in cases where they have committed crimes that result in someone passing away. Apparently, this law was only reinforced in April of 2001. That's about 6 months after Yukio was sent to the juvenile detention center, so it didn't apply to him. I guess his release was a very, very bad decision because when he was released, he had no one to fall back on. He had no job, no money, nothing. He was just released to go fend for himself. The authorities didn't think of how he was going to survive. They didn't do anything about his situation and just left him to himself without providing the necessary help. Not for even his mental health, knowing fully well that his diagnosis was something that would really affect him in the long run. Yukio on his part was glad to be free again. He had hoped to find the older woman whom he had been in a relationship with previously and continue from where he stopped. So with the little he had, he looked for her, but he couldn't locate her. It seemed she moved on and away with her life. So Yukio had no other choice than to go squat with his grandmother for the time being until he could figure out what to do next. While he was at his grandmother's house, Yukio refused to talk about anything that had to do with his own mother. He didn't want to hold any form of conversation about her and would not go to visit her grave. Well, he had his reasons. So he stayed with his grandmother until he became an adult. Then he moved out of his grandmother's house to a different city to start afresh on his own as an adult. In fact, he didn't even tell his granny he was leaving. He had just vanished 3 months after his coming of age ceremony, only to resurface in a new city. In this new city, Yukio will hang around thugs in casinos and illegal gambling houses popularly known as pachinko parlors as he made some money to keep body and soul together. But his mind was not totally off the woman he once loved. He would gather money sometimes, and when he had enough, he would travel back to go look for her, only to return when he had spent all of the money searching for her to no avail. He He would do this from time to time, but he never visited family whenever he was back at his hometown searching for this woman. The people he was mingling with would take him to clubs. This was just so he could mingle with women because they noticed how shy he was when it came to talking to women, but Yukio never had courage to talk to any woman in these clubs. Later on, he managed to save enough money to get himself an apartment in the city of Osaka. The area he lived had several condos that were separated by gender, and soon enough he was arrested because he was caught in the women-only condos where he should not have been. He was trespassing basically. Upon his release, he just went about his life and no one paid attention to him until 2 years later when Yukio saw sisters Azuko and Chihiro, who were 27 and 19 years old respectively. Azuka and Chihiro lived in the same block as Yukio in Naniwa, Osaka, but they never really interacted with him. Yukio on his own part kinda liked Azuka, the older sister. He had been monitoring them for some time now, and as time progressed he was totally smitten, and it grew into some form of obsession to him. Azuka was a look-alike to his ex-lover whom he had been trying to find for years to no avail, so he began stalking the sisters, especially Azuka. He would watch her come and go, then he would follow her around town until she returned home to the condo. This continued for a while until one day Yukio felt he had to do something, so he came up with a plan. Mind you, this was just days after he had moved to the building where the girls lived. So he broke into the girls' apartment on the 16th of November 2005 just to prepare for what he had planned. He cut off the power supply to the sisters' condo, and on the 17th of November 2005, he waited for the sisters to get back home. Asuka was first to return home that day from work, and Yukio was waiting with a weapon in hand. He forced her into the apartment and waited for Chihiro to return as well. And when she did, he attacked both of them, assaulting them both, forcing himself on them while threatening them with a sharp kitchen utensil. When they tried to resist, he attacked them with a sharp kitchen utensil, driving it severally into their chest and their face. And just like his mother 5 years prior, they were left mangled. The attack was quite intense, and it didn't take long for both sisters to pass away. Realizing that they were no longer alive, Yukio ransacked the apartment looking for anything of value to steal. He stole 5,000 yen, which is only about $50 I think. It wasn't much money at all, at least not worth someone's life. And while he was about to escape the crime scene, he made a last-minute decision to burn the apartment down to get rid of evidence. I don't know if he forgot this was a block of condos and a fire would not go unnoticed for long, but he did it anyways, using Asuka's lighter, which he casually kept in his pocket afterwards. It wasn't long after he set the apartment on fire that the fire was noticed and the fire department was called. They arrived in time and they were able to put out the fire, but then they discovered the bodies of the two sisters in the apartment, and quickly the apartment was taken up as a crime scene. Investigations began immediately, and when neighbors were questioned, they brought up Yukio as a peeping Tom. You know, he had been arrested before for trespassing and peeping at girls. So by December the 5th, he was invited to the police station for an interview. It didn't take long for him to break at all. He admitted he was responsible for what had happened to the sisters. He in fact told the officers that he could not forget the feeling he had when he did the same thing to his mother. So he wanted to see more and have that feeling all over again. He elaborated on the incident and told them how he had used a sharp kitchen utensil that belonged to him and that he had gotten rid of it at the shrine. Yukio gave every single detail of the crime, things only the true perpetrator would know. There was of course no doubt they had the right person, so they arrested him officially and he was charged for the crime. The way Yukio was proud of what he did and was speaking about it freely made authorities to wonder if he was psychologically stable. They needed to know if he was competent to stand trial, because his lawyers argued that what had happened was not premeditated. It was something he did at the spur of the moment, and that Yukio could not discern between good or evil. A psychiatric evaluation was ordered and he was eventually diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. I don't know much about this, you could read up on it yourself if you want to. But was this what had twisted his mind and turned it into a criminal mind? It's not his first brush with the law, so is it safe to say maybe, just maybe, if only they had given him the help and support he needed when they first came across him in his teens, perhaps the story would have been different. His behavior in court was bizarre. The terms he used in his description when talking about the crime he committed and the way he compared what he had done with situations unrelated was bizarre. He made a statement at one point that taking someone's life was just like breaking something, a comparison that wasn't making much sense to anyone but him. Yukio appeared to be detached from reality. All he had done from when he was first paroled up to this time is that of an individual who was criminally minded. The judge knew he had to take him off the streets. As his trial progressed, rumors swirled that he was going to get the capital punishment. He knew that himself as well, and he would state matter-of-factly that he was not afraid to die if he got the capital punishment for his crime. There was no regret when it came to Yukio. There was no remorse at all. In fact, he didn't care. He started withdrawing from his lawyers. He would not talk to them. He wasn't eating properly. He was getting emaciated as the days went by. He would request that he should get his punishment quickly. He wanted to be executed. He just wanted to get it done and over with. The families of the sisters whose lives Yukio took were around at the trials, and their sick father, Kazui Ohara, hoped Yukio's execution would come before he passed. He said, quote, "That is all I have been thinking about. I now have something to take with me to my daughters when it's time to go eventually." End quote. Yukio was given the capital punishment by the Osaka District Court. The judge expressed how disturbing it was that Yukio had not shown remorse, and it was impossible for him to be rehabilitated because he was obsessed with taking people's lives. The girl's father, after the sentencing, said at the press conference, executing Yukio would not bring back his daughters, but he was glad that he was given the capital punishment, as it shows that there was still justice in Japan. On the D-Day in 2009, Yukio walked calmly to the chamber. No remorse, no last words, as he was hung alongside another criminal. He was just 25 years old at the time, making him the youngest to be executed since 1972 in Japan. With that, we still come to the issue of mental health, which is increasingly coming up in criminal cases. Let's all learn to protect our mental health for our good and the good of others. That's all I have for you today, guys. Remember to subscribe if this is your type of content. Send me your case suggestions on my Instagram. Let me leave you with this case that still borders around mental health. Until next video, bye.